Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Close to the president and the White House, telling myself, my colleagues Kristen Welker, Peter Alexander, the president's mood is volcanic, to use their description of the words. He is exploding at this, furious, not just about the op-ed itself, the contents of it, but that it would be published in the New York Times, a paper he both despises and yet at times yearns to be in when he calls reporters in to be able to talk to them, that it was published anonymously in the Times. Now, let's be clear. Anonymous to us, but not to the heads of the op-ed pages in the Times. They know who this person is. They're just not telling everybody else because they say the senior administration official would then jeopardize this person's job if they were, in fact, to be revealed publicly.
It would jeopardize their job, which is working for a person that they consider to be unhinged, deranged, dangerous, petty, amoral, who disrespects the lodestar that is John McCain. Oh, my God, this is the parlor game of the century, everybody. Want to play? Want to play? Who do you think it is? 561-270-3844. Who do you think it is? I'll tell you who I don't think it is. Okay, first of all, the way that there are people on this planet who know who this is. And therefore, it will leak out. Because what I just said is there are people. That means more than one. That means phone calls. That means emails. That means meetings have happened to decide whether or not the New York Times wants to publish this editorial anonymously. So people, and who are those people? The people that are in the know is a man named Jim Dow and another man named Bennett, who are in charge of the New York Times opinion page, okay? And that is where this op-ed appeared, hence it's called an op-ed. That, for people who are still in the cult, means opinion-editorial. It doesn't mean news. It doesn't mean fact. It doesn't mean reportage. It doesn't mean, it means it's somebody's opinion on the editorial portion of the paper. It's like I always say to you, the Wall Street Journal is a fabulous newspaper if you stay away from their opinion page, which is just bizarre. But this is exactly who knows. So several days ago, this is how this happened. Several days ago, a senior official, this is all we know, senior official in the Trump administration, in the current administration. So that removes a lot of possibilities, like a Rex Tillerson. No, not there. A Gary Cohn. No, not there. Right? Takes away all the people who have quit because this president should not be served by any decent human being. It is where your reputation, your dignity, your integrity, and your pride go to die. And this, I remember when we launched this podcast effort in July of 2016, one of the first things I read to you, there were two. One came from, it was coming from the right wing. It was coming from the neocons. Seriously, it was coming from that group of people, the Elliot Cohens, the Max Boots. I mean, the neocons, the people who never met a war they didn't like. And they were saying that if you support this president, you're making a deal with the devil. And if you go to work for him, you're selling your soul to the devil on the installment plan. And I don't think a lot of people understood what I meant or what they meant by that. But now you can see that day after day after day, they sap this administration will sap from you any morality you might have left, any shred of conscience, any shred of decency, any shred of integrity, any shred of normalcy that you may have had in your life. So that's what they mean, that daily, the devil will be taken as due. That's what they were meaning right back then. So, okay, so finally, several days ago, this happened several days ago, a senior official in the Trump administration used an intermediary to contact the New York Times op-ed page editor, Jim Dow. And Dow will not say who this intermediary was. He was interviewed by CNN, and he said, quote, the person contacted me through an intermediary. He said it happened, quote, several days ago, declining to be more specific, but he said the intermediary was someone, quote, who I trust and know well. So that means it can't be Trump himself. And some people have speculated it's Trump himself. It's not Trump himself, and I can tell you why. Trump is neither trusted or smart enough to use the word lodestar. Okay, it's just, and also there were no caps and no misspellings. Therefore, take Trump out of the picture. Okay. But he goes on to say, quote, they told me that there was this individual in the Trump administration who was very interested in writing an op-ed, and would I want to see it? He said, quote, I almost always say, yes, I'm interested in looking at things and we'll take it from there. Later, there was a discussion within the New York Times about protecting the person by granting them anonymity. The agreed upon description was, quote, senior official in the Trump administration. There are about 1,200 people that could be considered senior, even if they didn't work on the West Wing. Okay, I just want you to understand that. But Mr. Dow, who is in charge of the op-ed page, declined to characterize how senior this person is. He said, quote, we were simply trying to abide by the standard that the Times in general would use when referring to someone who's not named. He said, quote, I feel that we followed a definition that has been used by our newsroom in the past. And just so you know that Mr. Dow reports to James Bennett, who is the editorial page editor, and he reports to the publisher of the New York Times, A.G. Sulzberger. Now, just remember the opinion page is separate from the newsroom. He said, quote, we have taken a number of special precautions to protect the person's identity. He was pressed on how he was communicated with. Was it face-to-face meetings? Was it encrypted messaging? He would not go into any detail about it. He said there was no special effort to disguise the person's writing style. He said there, quote, there's editing in everything we do, but it's based on making the person's views clearer than it is, to change their style. He said he understands the nature of it is extraordinary. He said that as far as he knows, the release of Bob Woodward's book and them being contacted is a coincidence, meaning the senior official's outreach was not related to Woodward's book. It's very rare that you would publish an anonymous op-ed piece, but they have done it before at the New York Times. The most recent example was in June. There was a unnamed asylum seeker from El Salvador who was given anonymity in order to tell her story. But he said he declined to say whether the person would speak on the record. He said, quote, we felt it was a very strong piece written by someone who had something important to say and who's speaking from a place of their own sense of personal ethics and conscience. Again, it can't be Trump. That was our main focus. He wouldn't talk about fact-checking it. He said, but, quote, we do make an effort to check the facts for all pieces. And he did not rule out publishing another op-ed from the same senior official in the future. Here was Trump reacting last night.
Nobody has ever done in less than a 2-year period what we've done. So when you tell me about some anonymous source, within the administration, probably who's failing and probably here for all the wrong reasons. No. And the New York Times is failing. If I weren't here, I believe the New York Times probably wouldn't even exist. And someday when I'm not president, which hopefully will be in about 6.5 years from now, the New York Times and CNN and all of these phony media outlets will be out of business, folks. They'll be out of business because there'll be nothing to write and there'll be nothing of interest. So nobody has done what this administration has done. And I agree, it's different from an agenda which is much different than ours, and it's certainly not your agenda, that I can tell you.
Thank you.
It's about open borders. It's about letting people flee into our country. It's about a disaster and crime for our country. So they don't like Donald Trump, and I don't like them because they're very dishonest people. Remember this also about the New York Times. When I won, they were forced to apologize to their subscribers. They wrote a letter of apology. It was the first time anybody's ever done it because they covered the election incorrectly. So if the failing New York Times has an anonymous editorial, can you believe it? Anonymous, meaning gutless, a gutless editorial. We're doing a great job. The poll numbers are through the roof. Our poll numbers are great. And guess what? Nobody is going to come close to beating me in 2020 because of what we've done. We've done more than anybody ever thought possible in, it's not even 2 years. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There are so many lies in that, I can't even tell you. But the one thing that is true is that this person is not a heroic figure. This is not a person of impeccable moral standing, because this is somebody who has been in the administration, who serves this president, and is trying to take the stain off of him or herself for serving this president. That is what this op-ed is about. This is about looking at polls and see the president lied right there. The polls are so bad for him right now. A majority of Americans for the first time disapprove of him. Only 37% of America wants Kavanaugh confirmed. Only 36% of Americans approve of the job he's doing. The tax cut is a bust. Most Americans, not just a plurality, majority of Americans now fail to feel the results of this tax cut. They know it was a scam. They know it was the largest transfer of wealth to the rich people of this country that they had been part of, seriously, I mean, since George Bush. He did it too. And they know that this is the main thing that Republicans care about is transferring our wealth to the very wealthy and then denying us pay raises and denying us Social Security COLA benefits and denying us Medicaid expansion and denying us Medicare for all, and because we can't afford it. Right? Because they've given all the money away. They know they're not stupid, this country, okay? We know, everybody knows that there's been $1 trillion worth of stock buybacks, and lo and behold, it's almost the exact same amount that the tax cut cost. So we subsidized the very wealthy yet again over objections from people like me. The cult went along with it. Now they're saying, okay, she was right, without saying, okay, she was right, because that would kill them. They would just melt. They would just melt like the Wicked Witch with a bucket full of water. Just, I'm melting. Oh my God, you know. But everybody gets it. Everybody knows this man's a liar. Everybody understands that he's crazy. And what we have here is a person who has a crazy agenda also, but doesn't want it executed by a crazy person. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.